president. He says political warfare is coming during Pride Month, and I fear you're right, and I also fear that you're right about the warning to Christians. So, James, where do you want to start?
I think maybe we'll start kind of big picture. I think we're going to see what political warfare is, first of all, is when you use basically intelligence kind of tactics against a population to get them to act and behave in certain ways that you can then take advantage of for political purposes, to drive an agenda, to get the DOJ to crack down on something, whatever. So now we know what that is. I think we're going to see two attacks through Pride, using LGBTQ, as they call it, issues as the wedge. One of those will be to get our corporations that skew as American brands, Ford, Target, Bud Light, Americana brands, to take this up full blast so that conservatives will turn around and boycott and target these corporations, as we should and almost as we must. So we cut off ourselves at our own knees, and Marxists would like nothing better. But secondly, they will attack religious icons. They will go after children. We've seen this with the so-called Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, or whatever they call themselves in Los Angeles, going after very religious, offensive behaviors. And the goal will be they know that conservatives, and particularly a lot of conservative Christians, are getting angry, that they're getting desperate. It's almost like they've woke up a dragon, and they're going to feed the dragon and get them to do something stupid that will then turn around and get used against them, to whether it's investigate churches, shut down churches, come down on conservative Christianity just from a political perspective, so that they're the domestic terrorist hotbeds of the country, and then come around in a few months and offer some new fake state-approved Christian churches that'll fill in the space that gets left by bulldozing what exists now. So moves against both Christians and conservatives, but also all Americans.
So in one survey conducted between 2007 and 2017, 52%, this is the claim, support some form of Christian nationalism. Later study, Brookings Institute, Public Religion Research Institute, says only 29% of Americans fall somewhere on the Christian nationalist spectrum. Over half Republicans reportedly show some degree of support, with 21% counting as adherents and 33% as sympathizers. What exactly is a Christian nationalist?
Glenn, I wish I could tell you, because it's a very wide, and I think deliberately wide, spectrum of beliefs that ranges from things that are as innocuous as that we need to have kind of a broad cultural revival and bring Christian values back to the public square, meaning at the level of individuals coming back to God, coming back to the church, getting, their Christian principles right and living them, all the way to the other side where we're talking about, in, say, the book that's titled A Case for Christian Nationalism by Stephen Wolfe, a Christian prince bestriding the land as the highest official, not just in the United States, but in the world. And so this Christian prince is, of course, a Protestant recreation of the Pope, and this person is supposed to become the ultimate civil magistrate, right out of kind of old philosophy. We talk old philosophy sometimes, Glenn, right out of Hegel's philosophy of right, where we're going to have this new kind of brilliant magistrate leader who's going to, have the correct ideals and principles and lead the country. So it's a huge spectrum of that, anything in between. And they're playing, in a sense, both sides against the middle by putting out a wide spectrum of different views, so that if one's unpalatable or one's too soft, they can point to the others and bounce around between the definitions and get people, and especially Christians, to dip into their values and say, well, what, I'm a Christian and I believe in this country, so I actually align with something in this, and I'll use the label, which, like I said, I believe is actually a gigantic federal government trap being set for Christians to step right into and lose their liberties.
So let me just give you some headlines. Politico. Most Republicans support declaring the United States a Christian nation. This is from the Washington Post. Americans are growing more accepting of Christian nationalism. NPR. More than half of Republicans support Christian nationalism. Well, I will tell you that they will put me and my collection of historic items into Christian nationalism, because I do believe the founding fathers founded this through their help, or through their belief in the help of God, and we are a Judeo-Christian nation. That's where we get most of our laws and the ideas. They came from the pulpit. That doesn't mean we hate other religions or anything else. It just means that's the truth of our faith. A Christian nationalist, I'm sure, according to them. Right?
Absolutely, Glenn. Yes,
Right.
absolutely. You know how the left works. They work through insinuation,
Right.
association, and salacious claims so that they can take the softest possible expression, something like what you just gave, that might convince somebody it's Christian national, and then tie it to the most extreme behaviors. And this is exactly what the dossier that was presented to the House Unselect, if we might quote President Trump on it, House Unselect Committee about January 6th. It's a 56-page document written by a lawyer named Andrew Siddell, and he goes as far on the one hand as giving kind of very extreme examples and tying it to neo-Confederacy and people carrying Confederate flags through the Capitol. And then on the other hand, he says, here's proof of Christian nationalism being so widespread, and it might be something as innocuous as quoting somebody giving a prayer. That's something like, Lord God, bless this nation. In Jesus' name we pray. And so now all of a sudden, because you're saying bless this nation, that counts. So your collection, certainly, your views, certainly are going to get roped into this. In fact, what you'll find is most of the conservative side of the aisle will get roped into this. According to my Wikipedia, I'm not even a Christian. I work with a Christian nationalist, so I'm Christian nationalist adjacent. But it turns out that the guy that I work with, his name's Mike O'Fallon, you know him, is not even a Christian nationalist and is on the front line fighting against this movement and this trap with me. So the facts will not matter to the left, is what I'm saying.
Right.
They will rope people in. They'll use insinuation, association to rope people in and to discredit them, to make them the new deplorables, the new unvaccinated, the new whatever can't be listened to, and to justify a large public scare campaign to get Democrats to pressure Democrat politicians to come out and push a second Patriot Act, to investigate churches, to demand a mandate to figure out where this domestic extremism is allegedly coming from out of our churches.
So the Joint Committee report on January 6th that white Christian nationalists were more likely to eschew safety measures and prioritize the economy and liberty over the vulnerable. They're also more likely to hold anti-vaccine attitudes, oppose any federal gun control restrictions due to the belief that the Second Amendment was divinely inspired. They're more likely to fear immigrants and endorse anti-immigrant policies, and they oppose same-sex marriage and transgender rights. Holy cow.
I'm telling you, Glenn, this is what Mao Zedong did in China, and it worked. Not specifically with Christians, although that's relevant too. What he did very successfully was he wrapped up this campaign he called Unity, Criticism, Unity. He said, we're going to have unity on a new basis here in China, and then he criticized viciously, unfairly, just like what you just read, anybody who might be able to be painted, not even somebody who is, but somebody who can be painted as a impediment to that new basis and unity under it. And then when everybody that's still allowed to have, a voice, a vote, etc., when everybody agrees, everybody who counts agrees, now they'll have unity under a new basis. We see this with the pushes for belonging. You see this with the pushes for inclusivity. You see this right here with what you just said. Every bad thing they can think of gets tied to this label Christian nationalism. And sadly, if they turn to some of these harder core guys that are both talking online and they're writing books and they're doing podcasts, they have ample evidence of people saying that they want to overturn the Constitution, they want to undo the 14th Amendment, they don't believe in the Equal Protection Clause, they want to get rid of the 19th Amendment, they want to get rid of free speech entirely and force belief. They have ample evidence. Stephen Wolfe, who wrote this book, has a podcast out there that I've seen multiple times because people send it to me frequently, where he says atheism will be stamped out in America. Well, what about Judaism? What about Mormonism? What about Buddhism? What about,
That is not American. See, that's the deal. Christian nationalism, if that describes him, then he's neither Christian nor American, because both of those go against Christianity and the American justice for all, freedom for all men are created equal. You can follow the dictate of your conscience. Those things, they're in direct opposition to what most people who would be labeled a Christian nationalist would agree with. I don't agree with anything that he just said.
Right, and like I said, this is probably a minority of the people that are part of the movement, but the left doesn't need most people to believe the crazy stuff. They need one person. That's it, which is they have plenty now. And it's not even, by the way, that this isn't American. If I might be so bold, it's not even Christian. I mean, the idea, if I understand Christianity correctly, is that Jesus came, Jesus offered his message, and Jesus is about you come to me if you choose on your own volition. This isn't about go out and force people to convert or stamp out this or that belief or whatever else. And what's happening is that people are justifiably and rightly frustrated. They are demoralized. They're afraid for their country, and they're starting to get desperate. They're saying it's too late. The Constitution's already dead. The law is already captured. We don't have any other options. And I'm not accusing.
And you're not a Christian, because everything but God, have faith. Raising someone from the dead, a little more difficult than bringing America back to its sane place.
If you're someone who's kind of getting by with this so-called recession, which is really cutting out the economy of a country, I don't even think there's a word for it yet. Deliberate entry into depression. How's that? The other crime that is huge in Venezuela is when people leave stores, they're targeted and attacked at an opportune time. And those crimes I just mentioned, that's 1 and 2 in Venezuela. Murder is 3. Murder rate's off the charts. And it's interesting because China and Russia are exerting influence in Venezuela, but they're certainly doing nothing about the crime. You see, what does crime eventually bring you? And I want you to hear what I'm going to tell you. We see it in Honduras. We're seeing it in Guatemala. We're seeing it in Panama. When the crime explodes, the government lets that fester. And then the people are begging for the government to do something. So if you want increased police state powers, just let your people victimize each other. This is what happened over the weekend in Chicago. 41 people shot. 41 people in one weekend were shot. 41 people. And why are people so brazen? Because they know nothing is going to happen to them. And what's the purpose? They're following Democratic policy, Democratic Party policy. And what would that be? Let the rats run wild, so when we come to exterminate the rats, they'll fall into line because save me, save me, save me. I remember when Henry Kissinger made a statement about 20 years ago. He said, right now we'd be up in arms if the UN showed up in one of our cities. He said, but things can be made to happen where they would beg for that. This is this time that's coming. Now you're saying, well, it's primarily in Democratic cities. Well, name a big city that's not Democrat. Can you name one? They go in and they go to an economically disadvantaged group, usually people of color, and they say, we will take on the man for you. You are where you are because you've been exploited. And we will help you. Even if their observations have any kind of validity, it doesn't matter. Because their goal is to get that membership. So now these people buy in. And then they live in the very city that won't protect them. Defund the police. You're at risk. 41 people shot in your city over the weekend. Oh, and if you're a veteran living in a Democratic city, and you're disadvantaged, you've got PTSD and you can't function in society, or you're severely handicapped because you went to a foreign country to fight for freedom and do what your country asked you to do, and you come home with parts of your body left overseas, and then they kick you out of state-sponsored housing to give it to illegal immigrants. See, this is police state mentality. They are setting you up to be in a police state. Can I make this any more clear?
Integrated. Okay? That means war. That means an invasion. That means blockade. That means supply shock. And why is that, ladies and gentlemen? It's because these semiconductors go in everything. They're going to go in human people's bodies, which is another topic of discussion. Biological integration and transhumanism, which they're already working on. There's 3 companies that have done that. The clinical trials just started for Neuralink. They've already been ongoing with other companies like Synchron and the company that is the BlackRock company that I have mentioned. They go into the graphics processors and the data machines and the supercomputers and the quant-based systems that govern blockchain technology, cryptocurrency, all of your smart devices, the Internet of Things, IoT. Everything is connected. The same reason why they put Alexas in your home years ago and they advertised it at the Super Bowl. It was for data intelligence collection and then massive surveillance. It was data mining and learning, similarly with your keystrokes through search engine algorithms, so they could eventually launch DARPA organized tools like OpenChat-GPT, which is exactly what it is. They didn't just come up with OpenChat-GPT suddenly. There wasn't a pause of 10 years from the launch of Google to all of a sudden we have ChatGPT. They hid the technology for years. Again, this is all about total control, total Orwellianism, if, that's a malaprop, total surveillance, and total integration onto a singular network. This is also why we're moving to a cashless system. They're moving to a cashless system because they don't want people to have financial economic control over their own destinies. They want to remove every ounce and single pressure point of what liberty is. So let's get back again to these breaking news stories. It's 10:11 here in beautiful Maui, Booyah. A drone attack hit Moscow Tuesday morning, damaging 2 residential buildings the day after Memorial Day. That's significant. The first strike in a civilian area of the Russian capital since President Vladimir Putin launched an invasion of Ukraine more than a year ago. First question, who do you think's responsible for this, ladies and gentlemen? Who do you think launched the drone attack? I wonder who that could have been. I told you that there would be a moment like this, okay? There would be a Reichstag event. What do you think just happened? It's the Reichstag event. So Ukraine now positioning to go on the offensive in the Crimean Peninsula. I'll just give my opinion now because I always state when it's my opinion. This is going to end in absolute total chaos and disaster. So this is breaking out. I'll keep you guys updated on this. This is absolutely worst case scenarios across the board. The U.S. government, bankrupt, insolvent. You've just had 7 banks go to zero. But here's what you also need to understand. I was having some great calls over the weekend, by the way, from many American patriots worldwide. And one of you in particular said to me, well, Christopher, I would hate to see Bitcoin at like $200,000-$300,000 or even $1 million, and where the U.S. dollar would be in that circumstance. And I responded, what a lot of people don't understand, again, is the U.S. dollar has already collapsed. Everyone's talking about hyperinflation and a dollar collapse because the U.S. dollar is already finished. They're turning on the new system and establishing new infrastructure for the CBDC. The U.S. dollar is done. Case in point, let's just hardball, spitball some facts. Case-Shiller Index report on housing came out today. They said there is no dip. Just like I told you, there's not going to be a dip, guys. This is hyperinflation. You will own nothing and be happy. This is what they want. You will. In fact, just yesterday, there was an F-16 or similar jet that blew past an American aircraft. I think it was in the East or South China Seas. And in fact, even recently, Elon Musk was interviewed by Mark Faber of CNBC and said the integration of Taiwan, meaning an invasion, is imminent. A blockade. And so I asked the question again, is this just a continuance of the American empire's downfall and collapse of our entire system? This is spiritual warfare, ladies and gentlemen. As I've been saying and warning for over a decade now, they will be inserting microchips into your head. And in fact, Neuralink this week, I could feel it spiritually. I knew it before the announcement even came because God told me. Neuralink and its human clinical trials have been approved. In fact, there's 2 other companies of which human clinical trials have already been approved, and they're working on now. And in fact, Elon Musk and others have fully admitted now it's not just for paraplegics or those with palsy, it's for everybody. Because you're going to have to compete with AI and ChatGPT, and you're